what lessons from this is a big, ridiculous question. But what lessons
Have at
from
it.
all the things we've talked about, the exploration of the Vikings, what lessons do you learn from Vikings?
Lessons to learn from the Viking age.
By the way, I should mention one thing. It's a very practical lesson that we didn't talk about that you taught me is the Vikings were like groomed themselves.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah,
were like clean. This is
yeah,
very surprising to me that they
yeah,
like washed themselves, and then both the men and the women
yeah,
really took care of themselves.
yeah.
You don't often think about that.
There was this whole like the Vikings. Everyone has this very clear picture of what a Viking looked like,
Hmm.
and also has no idea what a Viking looked like somehow at the same time. Like almost everything about them is wrong that we think of.
Yeah.
Almost everything about it is wrong. They didn't wear horned helmets.
Hmm.
Um, they their hair probably was blonde disproportionately, but that was more because they used lye to dye it because it would kill the lice. And then they would take baths on a more regular basis. I mean, this depended on where you were. So in England, for example, they were mocked as being soft, which always blows my mind. Like, really? You're going to mock the Vikings for being
Yeah.
soft? Because they took too many baths.
Hmm.
But then in the Muslim East, one Muslim traveler writes that they were God's filthiest creatures because of their habits of kind of disgusting shared bathing.
Oh, that aspect of
That,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
So it's not they didn't bathe; they bathed a little too much and together.
they bathed, but they also like would brush their teeth
Ah,
using like recycled water. Like they would then spit into a cup and pass it to the next
got it.
guy. It's not awesome.
I read that this could be propaganda, but I read that in England there was worry that the Vikings were a bit too attractive to the women of England because of how much the Vikings took care of themselves in terms of grooming.
Yeah, and in the Danelaw, like you get invaded by these people,
Yeah.
kicking your rear end militarily.
Yeah.
Now they're stealing your women just to insult you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. They wash themselves daily.
Yeah,
They've got good teeth. What
whether
is
they
this
need it or
bullshit?
not. I know. What are these?
What you guys can't have everything.
Yeah,
What are you doing? Anyway, so one of the lessons I think we need to draw is shower daily.
shower daily.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
right.
That's the
And
one
that's the
takeaway
lesson.
from the
That's the
Vikings.
takeaway. That's the big, profound takeaway.
Is there something big about the exploration, about the leaps into the unknown?
Yeah, I think like a couple of years ago, there were all these debates about statues. Should we pull these statues down? This person did a bad thing. Let's pull these statues. And I always thought they were kind of silly. I mean, I understand the point, but like we don't. When you have a statue of Christopher Columbus, for example, you're not glorifying every single thing the man ever did and all the bad stuff that comes from this or that. You're honoring something about him, like the spirit it takes to cross an ocean, not knowing what's on the other side, and that spirit of exploration. I think with the Vikings, it's the same. There's this way you approach the world, this fearless, pragmatic approach. I think as an American too, it's the ultimate. It's the ultimate rags to riches. It's the myth we tell ourselves. The man who starts with nothing and ends up as a sea king, well respected and sung about by poets. I mean, that's it right there. This is. And when you're a society and you stop doing this, you run into trouble as well.
What about the Byzantine Empire? What lessons do you draw from them?
This is that's a much bigger one.
1,000-year history.
1,000-year history, and it's also what I think is so cool about the Byzantines is that in the ways that they are like us and the way that they are unlike us.
Hmm.
In some ways, they're very analogous to the United States. The kind of the polyglot nature of their inhabitants, their roots, the Greco-Roman, Judeo-Christian roots. And yet it was a place of incredible alien things as well. Men sitting on top of pillars, a king, an incredibly hierarchical system which abhorred democracy. Um, so I think it's a route we could have taken. And it's the way they handled things, immigration, inflation, war, peace, diplomacy. I think there are lessons there for us.
Yeah, I think from the Vikings, the lessons are a bit more poetic.
Yeah.
The lessons from the Byzantine Empire is like quite literal, like how to run a government, how to run the law, how
Yeah.
to,
How to build a stable society.
yeah.
And honestly, like you can count on the fingers of one hand states that have lasted 1,000 years, right? Byzantium and Venice, I think. And Venice was an offshoot of the Byzantines. Like that's for a government to last 1,000 years is a rare thing. Like we should be taking a look at this.
Mhm.
Like how? And how much of that is due to Augustus? Can we give him any credit for this? I mean, he built the system.
Yeah, but there was a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of people along the way, from Constantine to Justinian, the Basils. There's so many emperors along the way that revolutionized and then restabilized the empire after it was almost falling
Oh
apart.
yeah. You know what else too though? Like what happens to a human when you give that human essentially absolute power? Because the Byzantine emperor stood halfway to, I mean, he was more autocratic than anything other than, I don't know, the Pope that we have in the modern world. What happens when you give someone that level of power? Like, I love Justinian, but I wouldn't have liked to know him. I wouldn't like to
Mhm.
be one of his subjects. I love Basil the First, but man was a bloodthirsty tyrant. Like, I think it shows you what happened. What is it? Lord Acton,
Mhm.
power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like that's quite clear throughout Byzantine history. So, and it's a long list.
And as technologies become more powerful, absolute power becomes potentially more destructive.
Yeah,
So
it's more absolute,
it's
you
more
know?
absolute, and it's I mean, this is the project for the 21st century. The 20th and the 21st century is post-industrial revolution, post the computer technological revolution, post-nuclear weapons discovery.
Hmm.
How do we construct societies that last like the Byzantine Empire did 1,000 years? Because
Yeah.
it's like a new challenge for us.
Yeah.
There's going to be history books written about us. Because like nuclear weapons, 80 years ago, it's like Greek fire that you can apply to the entirety of human civilization. And
Yeah.
and so that
Yeah.
there's going to be good history books, and I hope there's going to be these stories about the American Empire, about the rest that sound similar to Byzantine Empire, um, versus the Viking Age that only lasted
Yeah. Yeah.
3 centuries.
I mean, I suppose the good news is it can be done, right? Or it has been done.
It has been done. What gives you hope about the future? Having looked at the deep history of us, what gives you hope?
During grad school, I was reading Frederick Douglass's autobiography, and he said, I could sit with Plato and Cicero and they would not flinch. By which he meant that the great conversation was for everyone, no matter what your skin color, no matter what your level of income, and even no matter your intelligence. And I think that's actually that's why history comes alive for me, is because these are not alien people. Like you had asked how similar are ancient people to us
Mhm.
psychologically, what their goals were for life. And I think the short answer is they were identical to us, which is why we can understand them. It's why you should read things. It's why you should read the Meditations, because this is not just some dry whatever talking to himself in a culture that you cannot understand and can never recreate. It's a human talking about being human, And I think human nature has not changed, and I don't think human nature will change. So we are flawed and broken, and that's the human condition. We're going to be flawed and broken. So I actually think that's the great question of history. If you want to understand history, you have to know about human nature. What is our human nature? If you think it's a blank slate and we can kind of educate ourselves to a utopia, or like the Marxists said, then okay, hasn't really worked out, but okay. If you believe we're basically bad, there's a whole set of things that come with that. If you believe we're basically good, there's a whole set of, right? So you won't learn the appropriate lesson if you misdiagnose human nature.
Yeah, I think the diagnosis that you're kind of hinting at is seemingly the most accurate one, which is we're flawed. A mix of good, a mix of evil, capacity for both.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I have to teach my kids to be kind. I don't have to teach my kids to be unkind. I mean, one of those is natural and one is not. I think my kids can become kind,
The capacity
humans have
there.
the capacity for much great things,
Mhm.
but not perfection. It has to come outside of us.
Well, what is it, that line of all of us are in the gutter, but some of us are looking up at the stars?
Yeah.
And so you gotta teach as many of us uh, to look up at the stars and dream. Because once you allow yourself to dream of a better world, you try, you try, like the Vikings did. Go out there. Don't try not to murder your neighbor, but if you do, all of us have, of course.
If you do, there's Greenland. There's Greenland.
It's Greenland. Thank you for everything you've done for the world. Thank you for the podcast you put out there. Thank you for your incredible books, and thank you for the conversation today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks a lot.